Scott Damon's eyes flickered open, and the first thing he registered was an unfamiliar weight pressing against his chest. Groggily, he blinked, expecting to see one of his roommates or perhaps a stray pet. Instead, he froze. A figure, lavender-skinned, lithe, and entirely alien, lay sprawled on top of him. The soft curves of her form and the striking glow of sapphire eyes made his heart skip several beats. Her hair, flowing like liquid silver, framed her delicate, almost ethereal features. He froze, uncertain whether to panic or faint outright. Liana stirred as well, blinking in sunlight that filtered through the blinds. "Oh. Scott, I am terribly sorry," she said, her voice lilting, melodic, and unlike any human tone he had heard before. Her hands moved instinctively, adjusting her position slightly as though trying to make herself less imposing. This is normal in my culture. We are communal sleepers. Sharing body heat is essential for bonding." Scott's mind raced. Communal sleepers? Bonding? This is insane. You mean, you just lay on top of people you've never met," he stammered, trying to keep his voice steady despite the heat rising to his cheeks. Liana tilted her head, blue eyes wide with innocent curiosity. "I did not intend any inappropriate act. My instincts overrode logic. Physical proximity allows my species to sense emotional states more clearly. I did not anticipate your reaction would be discomforting." Scott's thoughts collided with disbelief and fascination. She was undeniably beautiful, but her actions, though explained, crossed a line he wasn't ready to process. His hand hovered nervously near her arm, unsure whether to push her off or freeze. Her skin radiated warmth, a tactile sensation unlike any human's. Every instinct in his body screamed caution, but his rational mind noted the unique physiology of her species. Liana's lavender skin seemed almost translucent under the morning light, revealing subtle, luminescent veins that pulsed gently with each heartbeat. Her alien features, slender ears, soft ridges along her cheekbones, and slightly elongated fingers, made her look simultaneously foreign and fragile. I don't know what to say," Scott finally managed. "This is very unexpected." Liana's expression softened, her eyes reflecting genuine apology. "I understand. In your species, consent is vital. I miscalculated. Please forgive me. I wish not to cause fear or embarrassment." For a moment, Scott just stared, trying to reconcile the surreal reality of waking up to an alien housekeeper sprawled over him with the logical explanation she gave. Every instinct told him to set strict boundaries, but a strange curiosity tugged at him. Who, or what, was this creature? He pushed himself upright, careful to maintain some distance. "Okay, let's start over. I'm Scott. And, you are?" "Liana," she replied, a small smile curving her lips. "I will do my best to respect your personal space from now on. But know that sharing sleep is deeply ingrained in my culture. It is how we show trust and build connection." Scott nodded slowly, torn between bewilderment, cautious intrigue, and the undeniable allure of someone so unlike anything he'd ever known. Today was going to be a very strange day indeed. After the initial shock subsided, Scott found himself navigating the complexities of Liana's alien worldview. Breakfast had been prepared with meticulous care, a combination of human staples and carefully synthesized nutrients he had never tried before. The aromas were intoxicating, and Scott's initial nervousness gave way to curiosity. "I read about your dietary habits," Liana said as she set down a plate of steaming eggs and a meticulously arranged fruit medley. Her hands moved with precise efficiency, as though every motion had been studied and perfected. "I believe this combination meets your caloric and nutritional needs." Scott raised an eyebrow. "You read about me?" "Yes," she said simply. "I studied your profile before beginning employment. Knowing your preferences allows me to better serve you." Her sapphire eyes sparkled with genuine interest. In my culture, sharing sustenance is also a form of intimacy. Eating together creates trust and strengthens bonds. Scott nodded, processing the cultural gap. He could see how her actions, though shocking initially, were guided by deeply ingrained customs rather than malice. Still, her earlier sleeping behavior and her fascination with human physicality lingered in his mind. I just need some time to adjust, he admitted. Your ways are very different. Liana cocked her head. Your body heat is intoxicating, she admitted, and Scott choked slightly on his coffee. Her candidness left him speechless. I find human warmth fascinating. It is very alluring to my senses. Scott swallowed hard. Right. Okay, that's interesting. But humans don't usually compliment each other like that so early. Liana tilted her head in genuine curiosity. What is human courtship like? How do you express interest without directly merging bodies? Scott felt a blush creeping up his neck. He explained the subtleties of human attraction, from body language to indirect flirting and emotional signals. Liana listened intently, her eyes shining with an eagerness that bordered on scientific obsession. It is complex, she murmured, almost to herself. In my culture, attraction and communication are transparent. We do not hide desires, everything is expressed openly. The more Scott spoke, the more he realized the challenges of navigating a shared life with an alien being. Yet, there was something compelling about Liana's openness, her honesty, and her curiosity. While human customs were often veiled and complicated, Liana's directness was refreshing and disarming. By the time breakfast was finished, Scott felt both relieved and unsettled. Liana had already complimented him multiple times and had asked more personal questions than most humans he had known in years. Yet, her earnestness made him want to answer honestly, despite the embarrassment. Human relationships are complicated, he said carefully. We tend to have rules, boundaries, and social expectations. It's not just about attraction, it's about understanding each other over time. Liana nodded, absorbing every word. I wish to learn. Your emotional responses, your rituals, your hesitation, they fascinate me. Perhaps observing these customs will deepen my understanding, and our bond. Scott found himself intrigued despite the awkwardness. There was something about Liana's candid fascination with humanity that felt disarming, almost intoxicating. He realized that the next few weeks would be a delicate dance of cultural exchange, boundaries, and, if he wasn't careful, growing attraction. Scott Damon had hoped that setting clear rules after the initial incident would restore a sense of normalcy. He sat on the edge of his sofa, mentally rehearsing the words he needed. Liana, I need boundaries. Professional boundaries. He glanced at her, noticing how her sapphire eyes seemed to study him intently, as if trying to decode every micro-expression. Liana, I need to clarify something, he began cautiously. I appreciate all that you do for me, but I need to maintain a professional relationship. Physical intimacy, or anything resembling it, is off-limits. Liana tilted her head, curiosity evident in her expression. Physical intimacy, off-limits, she asked, echoing his words with a lilting cadence. In my species, expressing attraction openly is natural. Our laws, even employment contracts, acknowledge that mutual attraction may exist between species. There is even a clause permitting interspecies romantic bonds, provided consent is clear. Scott blinked. Wait, you're saying there's a clause allowing, what? Romance between a housekeeper and their employer? Yes, she said plainly, as though he should find it obvious. It does not violate my duties. But I will respect your preferences. However, my species does not hide attraction or communication. We are candid about desires. Scott's chest tightened. He tried to focus on her words logically, but the situation was proving more complicated than he anticipated. Her candidness, her alien charm, the way her lavender skin caught the afternoon sunlight, it was all too much. Liana, it's not about rules. It's complicated for humans. We have emotional nuances, social expectations. Things are not always direct. Liana leaned slightly closer, unconsciously decreasing the distance between them. I am aware of nuances. I am learning. Yet, my instincts remain strong. Your proximity affects me, your warmth, your heartbeat, your subtle gestures, they are stimulating. Scott's face flushed, and he moved back slightly, attempting to restore physical space. He realized that Liana's direct approach was not malicious but deeply instinctual. Every word she spoke was honest, devoid of deception or hidden agendas. Unlike humans, who often mask their intentions, Liana's transparency made his emotions feel more raw, more vulnerable. I need you to understand, he said firmly, that even if your culture is different, my comfort matters. If this fascination, continues, it will be difficult to live together. Liana's expression softened. I understand. I will adjust my behavior where possible. But please do not mistake my curiosity and interest for coercion. I am guided by instinct, not malice. If you consent, our relationship may develop in ways unique to humans and Etherians. Scott sighed, running a hand through his hair. He had expected some cultural adjustments when he hired her, but the level of directness, and the persistent magnetism she radiated, was overwhelming. Despite his insistence on boundaries, he couldn't deny the pull he felt toward her. Over the next few days, he found himself navigating a delicate balance. Liana continued to perform her duties impeccably while simultaneously testing the limits of social propriety. Her flirtation was subtle yet blatant, honest in a way no human could emulate. She complimented him openly, asked personal questions, and occasionally lingered near him in moments that felt charged with tension. Scott realized that while he could attempt to impose boundaries, Liana's instinctual directness meant that emotional and physical tension would continue to build. Her charm was undeniable, and even as he tried to maintain professional decorum, he found himself responding, hesitantly, awkwardly, to her presence. By the end of the week, Scott understood one truth: living with Liana meant constantly negotiating a space where professionalism, cultural differences, and mutual attraction collided. The rules of human interaction were insufficient. He would need patience, self-control, and perhaps, a willingness to accept the unexpected. Scott had assumed that after clarifying boundaries, life with Liana would settle into a predictable routine. He was wrong. Liana's cultural instincts were deeply rooted, and the more she learned about humans, the more complicated their interactions became. The first incident of communal sleeping had left a residual effect. Liana often referenced it, not consciously, Scott realized at first, but subtly. She would observe him quietly, noting changes in heart rate, micro-expressions, and body tension. "You were warmer than expected last night," she said once, as if it were an innocent observation. "Your heartbeat responds to stimuli differently from what I anticipated." Scott froze. Liana. That's private." "Noted," she replied, tilting her head. "But the experience created a bond in my species. Our emotional sensors are activated through shared sleep and proximity. I sense attachment forming, emotional resonance." Scott tried to mask his discomfort. Emotional resonance? Is she serious? Yet, despite his rational objections, he felt a flutter of something unfamiliar. Liana was not merely observing, she was connecting, empathizing in ways humans rarely did. One afternoon, she reorganized his closet, his clothes, his shoes, even his underwear. "I thought categorizing these will streamline your daily routines," she said with innocent candor. Scott stammered. "Liana. That's personal." Her eyes widened. "I did not realize the level of intimacy humans associate with clothing. In my culture, sharing all aspects of one's environment is a sign of trust. I am not violating you, I am bonding. He rubbed his temples. Every day, this gets more complicated. But as he watched her, the empathy she exhibited was undeniable. Her attention to detail, her curiosity, and her instinct to nurture created an emotional intimacy that was impossible to ignore. Liana's fascination with human behavior grew more pronounced. She asked about emotions, reactions, and even subtle human cues that Scott himself struggled to interpret. She would notice when he was tense or contemplative and sometimes touch his arm lightly, claiming it was to assess emotional resonance. Scott found himself in a strange limbo. Logically, he wanted distance. Professionally, he knew boundaries were essential. Yet, the empathy and bonding instincts Liana displayed made it difficult to maintain detachment. Her curiosity wasn't invasive in a malicious sense, it was rooted in understanding, connection, and perhaps, care. By the end of the week, Scott realized their relationship had evolved. Liana's cultural misunderstandings, combined with her ability to sense emotional states, had blurred the line between housekeeper and companion. The emotional tension was undeniable, and he understood that the next phase of cohabitation would require navigating these instincts delicately. Despite his best efforts, Scott felt an undeniable pull toward Liana, one that was intellectual, emotional, and increasingly, physical. The initial shock of waking to find her on top of him had evolved into a complex mixture of attraction, curiosity, and cautious affection. Liana had become a presence he couldn't ignore, and he wondered how long he could resist the growing bond between them. By the weekend, Scott had begun to appreciate Liana's odd but earnest attempts at integrating into human life, though her misunderstandings remained frequent and intense. That morning, he returned from a short errand to find the backyard transformed. The grass was carefully trimmed, a soft blanket spread neatly, and an assortment of food and drinks arranged with meticulous precision. Candles, non-lit for obvious reasons, were scattered around, accompanied by flowers he didn't recognize. Liana herself was adjusting the last items, her lavender skin almost glowing in the afternoon sunlight. "Scott," she said with a melodic smile, "I have prepared what your species calls a courtship ritual. A picnic is appropriate for demonstrating mutual interest while engaging in emotional and intellectual exchange." Scott froze mid-step. "Wait, courtship ritual? Like, a date?" Liana nodded, unflustered. "Yes. I studied your customs extensively. It appears that sharing food, conversation, and wine signals attraction. I have also included discussion topics designed to encourage emotional transparency." Scott's mind spun. He wanted to object, yet the scene was enchanting. She had recreated a romantic ambience with such precision that it was hard not to feel moved. He walked closer, and Liana handed him a glass of wine with a small flourish. "This is a human beverage associated with relaxation and bonding," she explained. As they sat, Liana's sapphire eyes studied him intently. "You are my potential mate," she said bluntly, her words leaving Scott momentarily speechless. "It is evident to me that our mutual attraction exists. I wish to explore it respectfully, if you consent." Scott cleared his throat, unsure whether to laugh, protest, or simply marvel at her candor. "Liana, human relationships aren't straightforward. It's not just about attraction. There are emotions, social expectations, and history to consider." "I understand that there are complexities," she replied, tilting her head in curiosity. "That is why I am learning. I enjoy challenges. Bonding becomes stronger through overcoming obstacles and navigating unfamiliar territory. I wish to experience your customs fully." The picnic unfolded slowly, with Liana alternating between offering insights about her species and asking thoughtful, sometimes personal, questions about Scott's past relationships, his emotional responses, and even his concept of love. Scott, initially guarded, found himself opening up more than he expected. Her genuine interest, combined with her complete absence of judgment, made sharing feel strangely safe. At one point, she poured him a second glass of wine and smiled. Your reactions are intriguing. The subtle increase in heartbeat, the slight flush on your skin, this indicates emotional engagement. Scott swallowed, feeling exposed yet flattered. You're like a walking human psychology manual, he joked, trying to mask the growing warmth in his chest. Liana laughed softly, a sound like a wind chime. I prefer to call it empathy. Observing, understanding, and responding to emotional signals is a way I bond with those I care for. It seems effective with you. By the end of the picnic, Scott realized the picnic wasn't just about romance or attraction, it was an exercise in trust, learning, and mutual exploration. Liana's methodical approach was undeniably alien, yet it carried a sincerity and charm that humans rarely matched. He had come expecting awkwardness and confusion. Instead, he left the afternoon with a growing sense of connection he hadn't anticipated. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the backyard, Scott and Liana lingered on the blanket, neither eager to leave. There was a quiet tension between them now, electric and undeniable. Liana observed him carefully, noting every micro-expression, every subtle shift in posture. I have been studying you, Scott, she admitted suddenly, her voice calm but earnest. Human emotions are fascinating. Your responses are complex and nuanced. I enjoy observing, understanding, and interacting with you in ways I have not done with others. Scott's heart thumped audibly in his chest. You've been studying me? Like, scientifically? Liana tilted her head, her long silver hair catching the fading light. Perhaps. But not devoid of interest. Your reactions are appealing to me. She paused, her sapphire eyes meeting his. I admit that I notice when you are unaware of my attention. Watching you, your expressions, your gestures, teaches me much about human attraction. Scott's face warmed, and he looked away, embarrassed yet captivated. This is getting complicated, Liana. I didn't expect to feel this way, and I don't think you understand human boundaries entirely. She reached out lightly, brushing a hand against his arm. I am aware. Yet, the emotional bond formed between us is undeniable. My instincts compel me to act with care, to respond to your needs, and to foster trust. He exhaled slowly, realizing he was drawn to her. There was a raw honesty in her approach, a lack of pretense that humans rarely exhibited. Her alien allure was compounded by an understanding and empathy that made him feel seen in ways he had not before. Liana leaned slightly closer, her voice softer. Your body language signals attraction, hesitation, and curiosity, all simultaneously. This is pleasurable for me to perceive. I wish to continue learning and bonding with you. Scott hesitated. The rational side of him screamed caution, but his instincts, emotional, physical, and even intellectual, pulled him toward her. The week of cultural misunderstandings, shared meals, and careful observation had culminated in this moment of undeniable connection. I can't deny it, Scott admitted, his voice low. There's something between us. Something I didn't expect. Liana smiled, her sapphire eyes luminous. Then we acknowledge it. We continue, cautiously, with respect, curiosity, and honesty. That is all I ask. For the first time since she had moved in, Scott allowed himself to relax, letting the tension, attraction, and emotion wash over him. Their bond, odd, alien, and yet profoundly real, had begun to transcend mere employer-housekeeper dynamics. It was a connection rooted in fascination, care, and the strange, uncharted territory of human-etheria interaction. As the picnic ended and the stars began to appear, Scott realized one truth: living with Liana would forever alter his understanding of intimacy, trust, and attraction. And for the first time in a long while, he found himself eager to explore it.